Now let's focus on just two strategies. Narration and description patterns go hand in hand. One will often incorporate the other. Let's begin with narration. Narration tells a story, a sequence of events. It tells us what happened and describes the action. Narration can be fictional, historical, biographical. As a result of its different uses, narration can also be subjective or objective. For example, a narrative of something that occurred in your personal life is bound to be subjective because it happened to you and it's seen through your eyes. On the other hand, if you were presenting a sequence of events within a historical perspective, your approach will be objective since you are relating and discussing facts. Because a narrative piece describes an action, verb tense and tenses are crucial to the sequence of events. The tenses create and maintain the order of those events, especially if the subject is something new for the reader. Transitional words such as now, then, before, during, and so on help you to maintain that order and keep a clear perspective in the mind of the reader of what is happening or has happened. Furthermore, avoid the passive voice. You want to stress the action, and in doing so, create the desired response in your readers, whether the situation is familiar to them or not. Your purpose could be simply to inform the reader about an experience you had. The story itself could be the entire writing selection. On the other hand, many authors employ a small narrative within a larger writing selection which has an entirely different main pattern strategy. In order to catch the reader's attention and to illustrate or explain a significant point being made. For example, let's say you are writing a short essay on the consequences of drinking and driving. To support your thesis statement that anyone can be affected by the carelessness of others, you may choose to relate a story about a friend who has been permanently injured in a car crash. Your friend hadn't been drinking. Your friend hadn't been driving, but your friend was the victim. This kind of narrative doesn't present any statistics. However, it stirs the emotions of your readers. It gives them something concrete to relate to, and it drives home your point. The order in which you narrate a sequence of events can vary as well. Some stories are told from beginning to end, chronologically. Others jump back and forth in time. An author uses the latter style, the non-chronological order, for a variety of reasons. Perhaps to emphasize certain events, to build anticipation or tension, or to provide background information and details that will help the reader understand what is going on. For example, I'm sure you have read a story, a short story or a novel that begins near the end, near the climax, then goes back to the beginning of the sequence of events and follows them back through to that point. The author wanted to grab your attention and create suspense. Flashbacks are another technique authors use to provide background information without having to start the story too far in the past. In your exercises and workshops, you will see other examples of narration. Both narration and description create a clear picture and a desired response in the reader. A description can be subjective or objective, and each kind has its own purpose. In a subjective description, the author interjects his own or her own feelings through the descriptive techniques. The author wants to reveal the effect the scene has had or the attitude it has produced. The purpose is to create a similar effect in the reader. An objective description presents observations which remain factual, not emotional. A report is a typical example of this kind of description. The subjective is much more sensory. The objective is much more precise. No matter which style is used, a descriptive piece needs to create a vivid picture for the reader. Once again, the tools you use To paint your picture are your words. In narration, the verbs are crucial. In description, the senses are. Well-chosen descriptive adjectives, phrases, and so on allow the reader to feel, see, hear, taste, and smell what the author does. However, the description must also be clear. Remember, the reader is not necessarily familiar with what you are describing. For example, if you are describing waking up to strange whirring sounds in the middle of the night, you must orient your audience. Give a frame of reference. Keep in mind that you know more about the topic than your audience does. Another important aspect is spatial orientation. That is, you must make sure that your reader is picturing what you are describing within the same context of space and direction. In other words, if you're describing lying on your bed and listening to this whirring sound, you must make your references to the direction of the movement of the sound as clear as possible. These directions can be signaled by choice of words, such as above, to the right, under, below, and so on. Painting a clear picture is the key to a successful description. Note the difference in impact between the following two statements. The dog sat there. This is a fairly straightforward statement of fact. It tells us nothing about the dog, nor the place, nor why the dog was sitting there. In the middle of the busy road sat the dirty, scruffy-looking old dog, panting, totally exhausted, without even an ounce of energy left to make its way to the edge of the road in safety. This description may not tell us the whole story, but it certainly paints a clear picture. Narration and description complement each other. They create a picture that serves a purpose. That purpose may be simply to tell a story or describe a scene. On the other hand, these two writing strategies may also be used within the context of a larger piece of writing whose central purpose is something quite different. In this case, the narration or description provides another method of support for that purpose. This ends today's presentation. You will have the opportunity to practice these strategies and techniques through your workbook exercises and in your writing workshops. The other development strategies mentioned today will be developed more fully in their own presentations. Thank you.